Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. That's RM Korea. It is August 27th on this Tuesday here. Just getting closer and closer to week one in both the NFL and in college football. Obviously, week one in college football starts on Thursday. We'll have our best bets for the entire weekend coming up soon, obviously, probably tomorrow or Thursday. But we obviously have some NFL futures we still like to give it. Obviously, we are getting closer and closer to the beginning of the upcoming NFL football season. And today I'm just going to give out one season entry prop that I have officially placed, but I like it at both values here. I'm taking Joe Burrow. I got his passing touchdowns line at 27.5. I see it on DraftKings at 28.5. I still like it there, but I'm just going to be all on Mr. Joe Shiesty this season. And it's more of a narrative play, but, you look at the Bengals offense, right? And now, no Joe Mixon. They bring in Zach Moss, and there's a lot of changes in that run game. Obviously, the emergence of Chase Brown. There's a lot of excitement there. But when you look at the pass for, obviously the Bengals have always been a more pass-centric offense, and obviously last year with Joe Burrow getting injured, obviously having to sub in Jake Browning for a considerable amount of time, this team still finished relatively well, right? And I still think this year, even though they have a very tough schedule with just who they play, obviously playing each division member twice, along with, outside of everybody else. I still feel like Joe Burrow, does what Joe Burrow does this year. You have, Jamar Chase, who's, been one of the big names in this big whole contract dispute. Obviously, I feel, oh God, Ari, literally yesterday I was just bragging about how, the Cowboys weren't going to do anything and CD wasn't going to get paid. And not even minutes later, that the alert comes out that CD got his money. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen with, well, actually, maybe it does happen with Jamar Chase today. Who knows? But obviously he's one of these wide receivers, being mentioned in the contract disputes right now. And obviously T. Higgins is playing on the franchise tag. So, both of their star wide receivers are, have something to play for essentially this season. Obviously T. Higgins has been wanting his money. Jamar Chase wants his money, rightfully so. These are two of the top receivers. We've seen the talent, these two, the way Joe Burrow just finds these two, anytime. And I think, with this whole narrative of both on especially on expiring contracts soon, especially for Higgins who's on the tag, I think Joe Burrow balls out this year, right? And I think with how this offense has pretty much shaped themselves, obviously just focusing on themselves a lot more pass centric. Obviously, no disrespect to Joe Mixon, but I think with him being in the backfield, I think it caused a little bit of relief, not having to focus more on the pass, on those early downs, getting a couple yards. But now that, they have Zach Moss, who, there's no scrub in his way, but I think, and compared to Joe Mixon, he still has a lot to learn, obviously, from his time as a member of the Colts. I still think, Joe Burrow balls out this year. He has so many options. We talk about the Bengals receiving core being one of the deepest, receiving cores in the league with, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins kind of leading that 1-2 punch essentially, for the Bengals. I think they definitely get their amount of touchdowns as well. I've seen this line kind of hover around this 27 or 28 line. I think I think this may be a 30 touchdown year for Joe Burrow. I think he really has one of those years where, he really balls out. I mean, you look at, this roster, and it's not really any big changes in terms of the receiver room. Obviously, like I said, they still have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They still have some pretty good veteran guys. They don't have Boyd anymore, but at the same time, with how, even though you don't have Boyd, I still think, Trent Irwin was, he was sufficeable at times. Obviously, I don't know. I forgot they brought in Gesicki, shout out, Drew Sample, Newport High School product himself. He's still one of their bigger pass catchers, for this Bengals team. Look, you look at this offense, right, and you see all the weapons that they have, and I think, is kind of just focused on Joe Burrow, right? Obviously, the running back room is a little small, but, there's a lot of excitement for Chase Brown this year. You look at the receiving room, obviously, it's led by, the two receivers that I've been talking about in Higgins and Chase, and everyone else around them as well. They're sufficeable, but it's more focused, on the fact that Joe Burrow is going to be slinging the ball because, behind him, it's just Jake Browning and Logan Woodside. And, we saw Jake Browning last year and he was sufficeable, but it's not the same. He got his touchdowns. He got his passes because obviously, whatever quarterback, he has Jamar Chase is going to be a star receiver, and same for T. Higgins. But now they get their quarterback back, and I think with having Joe Burrow back, I think that makes this offense was obviously scary last year, but I think obviously makes them even scarier as per usual. So I think Joe Burrow has himself a great year. I think obviously with a more pass-centric offense that I can definitely see for this Bengals team, I think that just means Joe Burrow is going to be finding the end zone a lot more. Obviously, focusing more on the pass. Especially with and when you look at the Bengals as a whole team, obviously, even though this is a more offensive season prop, you got to look at in some situations where maybe they're down in some games because their defense is not doing their job. That obviously means Joe Burrow's gonna be throwing the ball, which means he's gonna be throwing it in the end zone, which obviously plays out as well. So I don't think the Bengals defense is going to be the same as last year just because of some of the key losses. But when you do look at the offense, it's pretty much the same outside of Joe Mixon and Tyler Boyd, but those weren't really the main centric guys. Joe Mixon obviously was, but the big three on that offense is Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. And I think that's going to be what it is this year. And with that included, I think Joe Burrow balls out. I think he goes over that 27.5 passing TD line. I got it there. I know it's at 28.5 right now. I still like it there. I think Joe Burrow, has himself a 30 TD season. I think he really has a great season, with that offense. Like I said, the offensive line has been one of the bigger issues, obviously, for the Bengals. And that's why Joe Burrow was out last year. Obviously, his offensive line has not been good for Cincinnati, but they've had some key additions this offseason. I think it really, really presents itself for Joe Burrow to really stay in that pocket, just sling the ball as he normally does. We've seen some of the great throws, cold throws, whatever you want to call it. I think he has a great season this year. So I'm taking his season prop to have over 27.5 touchdowns. Like I said, I got it there. I still like it at 28.5, even though it's a little bit of plus money. I still like it at there. So that's my one season prop entry. I'm going to have another one tomorrow for you. I have Joe Burrow over 27.5 passing touchdowns. I also got it at 28.5, like I said. Those are my two plays. That's my one plays. Ari, here, I'll let you cook. I know I just escaped for a little bit. What have you cooked up, obviously, on this Tuesday?
Yeah, just one player prop for me as well. And it's one that I did bring up when we were first going over the NFL futures, but I'm bringing it up again just because we're going over the plays again, obviously. Kyler over passing yards, as I talked about before, when he came back last year, second half of the year, he threw for almost 1,800 yards in just 8 games, which, again, not that you can just purely extrapolate, a span to their whole season. It's still on pace to go well over, I think it was over 3,600 yards passing. And that's, obviously now they add Marvin Harrison. You have a full season of McBride. You have other supporting guys like Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch. James Conner will have his role in the passing game. And this is still a team, with a bad defense. They're going to be playing from behind a lot. I like the offense a lot this year for fantasy, and that's obviously included Kyler, where they're just going to be having to throw the ball a lot every week, I think. I think they're still going to, lose a lot of games. They're going to be a lot more exciting and, a lot more shootouts, a lot of weeks against a lot of teams. So I think Kyler can easily, I think he can soar over this line. I mean, that, after getting hurt last year, I still think he'll use his legs, but I think he may be a little bit more, maybe a little bit less just coming off injury. Obviously he's at his best using his legs, so that's not going to completely go away, but it's not enough of a worry for him to go under this passing yards line. So yeah, I mean, like I said, they're going to be having to throwing a lot to stay in games, I think, in a lot of weeks. Just with the state of where their defense is at. And I mean, I think Harrison's going to be a complete stud, day one as his number one. And then McBride will have, a pretty big year as well. And then, one of Wilson and George will step into that number 2 role, I think. And then again, Conner will have his role in the passing game as well out of the backfield. So this is probably one of my top 2 season-long player prop plays I like this year with Kyle over passing yards. So yeah, that's my one and only play today. And I like your Burrow play as well. I think both of these can hit.
I definitely agree with you there. I think both of these could hit as well. I am big on Kyler Murray as well. I know you talked about him about a couple weeks or about a few weeks ago, but you mentioned a few weeks ago. You mentioned Arizona's defense not going to be good. Obviously, one of the worst in the National Football League. So they're going to be playing down a lot, which means he's going to be using his arm a lot to throw the ball. Obviously, they bring in a star receiver in Marvin Harrison Jr., which really elevates this offense a lot more for him. They still have some great pass catchers. You mentioned Trey McBride, Greg Dortch, Wilson. They obviously have Connor out the backfield as a pass catching back at times. Look, I think Kyler Murray, obviously you mentioned in the short little stint when he did come back last year, he had 1,800 yards, and they were playing from down a lot last year. It's basically a similar narrative. We saw the Cardinals down a lot, or try to make games competitive late, just with Kyler Murray and their offense. So I think he soars over this line. I've seen this line on some books like Prize Picks or some of those DFS apps. I think they've moved his line up almost near 3,500 or 3,470 or whatever. I don't know, but I know this line has definitely been moving around. So I know Ari, you got it at a pretty good value, or gave it out at pretty good value, but I know it's been going up and up, slowly, just with a lot of steam and, just a lot of popular people, a lot of people, putting some bets on it. So I do like that play for you as well. Kyler Murray going over his line of pretty much just to have a guaranteed at least 3,400 passing yard season, which I definitely can see, especially with, as we talked about, the offense is going to be very pass heavy just because they're going to be down a lot, forcing, when you're down early, obviously that just means you're going to be throwing the ball a lot. So I do like that play for you. Obviously, today we just had 2 quarterback season props. Obviously, we're going to have a lot more as we get closer and closer to the NFL season. Obviously, you can find all of these picks, including our NFL futures, our college football cards, and more on our Twitter below, AKP Sports Talk. We'll have everything posted soon. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we'll have our picks for Thursday coming up soon. Obviously, we have some football games Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. 5 days of college football as we get ready to kick off the NFL just a few days later, just a week from Thursday and Friday as well, with the Philadelphia Eagles and Green Bay Packers in Sao Paulo, Brazil. That's going to do for this episode. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. That's Ari. I'm Korea. We will see you guys tomorrow for some more best bets and, of course, some NFL